Hello everyone, this is Cookies, and I've got turn 66, so let's go ahead and dive in. We got two messages, one from Pythium. Plan to dom kill Machaka. Becomes harder when Shinyu is actively blocking my sieging forces. I think I'm probably misplaying, but not sure what I should be doing instead. I'm having a stare down with Shin's army in my northeast fort. It must be defended because it hosts Stellar Nexus and now Eternal Pyre. In the meantime, Shen's golems and sorcerers are stomping around, and I don't really have a great answer to any of them, nor the critical mass of troops elsewhere. I thought I had a resources advantage before, but I'm starting to wonder if that's still the case with the progress Shen is making. And I think we've seen this in the graphs that it is true. Things have started evening out between the two of them. So, and Pythium's taken a lot of attrition, so we'll see how things hold up. The good news, if I manage to keep Stellar Focus up, is that I should have Arcane Nexus in 6 turns. The bad news is that may create a mass coalition against me, but I kind of feel that would happen regardless if I manage to take 1 or 2 thrones. I'll be honest, I don't know that this is what you should be aiming for. I think the really good play, at least in my opinion, would be Master and Slave. If you can walk up to a Shinyama army and steal all of their Daibakemono, the army v army fights become a very different beast. So, but, and you could potentially power, one fight like that every turn or so because of Stellar Focus. So, depending on how much he wants to spend on other astral gear or spells. But I think that would be my pick because that is Pythium's superpower. You have these communicants, which are pretty easy to mass. So you can get up to the required paths to be able to cast something like a Master and Slave pretty quickly. So you should be able to field more of those types of communions. With one piece of communion gear, you can do a turn 1 cast, which does start looking a little bit better. You can add like a Twist Fate Amulet in case you're worried about bone grinding bullshit. So Pythium's an extremely strong nation. And to me, I think I like that more than trying to go for Nexus. Nexus to me is something that you do maybe if once you're already getting coalitioned by everyone. I don't think you want to provoke a coalition while you're down on resources the way you are, because it takes a little while to pay off. And during that window, you're going to get attacked like crazy by everyone else, if it's a reasonable lobby. So we'll see. Killing Jotunheim was satisfying, expensive but satisfying. I didn't know until just now that immortals recover mute 75% of the time. It's probably better for me that the Demilich won. Now it misses this turn to build the lab, and the next turn is fighting at lower strength. If it goes to defend his fort, that will mean it stays muted for even longer. Not having to fear Death 7 spells makes the Demilich much less fearsome. I thought it had mute, or it had recovered mute when we saw it in the last fight. Interesting. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Okay. I want to attack north from Jotunheim, particularly to get the 4-gem lake up there, but I'm not. I could spare the troops, but I can't spare the commanders. Instead, I'm gathering at the central palisade instead, where I'll be summoning an army to counterattack Yes. I won't lose Nabab, but I will lose 250 gold a turn to Yes when they siege it. That is going to hurt, since we'll be 4 to 5 turns before I can throw them back. The plan is to build a Demilich-resistant army of Sentinels and Olms supported by elemental royalty. Yes, I'm reaching Conjuration 8 next turn. At the same time, this turn, I'm hitting the Southern Shore Fort again. It's a little early because I forgot to do some vital steps last turn. But I have an army and plan. I have an army and plan I think can win against anything they send there. I don't know exactly what they have, but I'm safe from the Demilich there unless I decide to storm and my reinforcements will slip through this turn while the Demilich can't kill them. The big issue was I failed to move a Gem Courier Scout into position and make a Thistle Mace last turn. I logged in to make the change but did not realize the game will turn over even if you're logged in if you've sent in a completed turn. I mean, yes. So if somebody else ends their turn around the same time, that can absolutely happen. So what you want to do is just mark your turn unfinished, and then that should give you time, assuming there's still time on the clock. All right, we got a new global from Pythium. Oh, Gift of Health. Okay. All right, and we have a number of battles. So we've got an offensive by Shinyama into Tyranea and Dovin. Some counterattacks by Pythium. Yeah, just a lot of fighting between the two. Let's go ahead and hop into it. Arouse Hunger, that's not going to do anything unless it's another Crone drop, which it is. Alright, so another Pythium army bites the dust. These commitments are getting smaller and smaller, though. Well, I'm a little bit curious. That was a projection. It's gone. She did Wind of Death and now is retreating. Okay. Give the old woman some flying shoes. But I guess her walking off gives more time for this battle to continue. Alright. So that's another Acolyte, another Theurg, 6 more Communicants, 25 more Emerald Guard. And at 10 MR, I mean, at some point in my mind, maybe you just start replacing the Emerald Guard with lesser, cheaper Legionnaires. Even though they're not as good at fighting. But, I mean, this is just brutal, losing so many 20 gold units. Alright, then the follow-up fight in Tyranea. It's the full Shinyama army. How much mage support is here? A fair bit. So we got 3 Bakemono sorcerers. All of them twice born. We got a Kitsune. This is not the hero, though. Also does not have Simulacrum. Even have a High Magus here, who's got a LLP, and some other gems. This Uba here. So a lot of good path diversity in this army. You know, Daitingu for air buffs. So we'll see what they put on. This is pulling gems. Relief, Twilight, Rigor Mortis. I mean, this is all going to get slaughtered. We got Solar Brilliance by the Theurg. So they do have higher MR, but a lot of them could be getting afflicted as long as Solar Brilliance stays up, despite that. We got Fog Warriors over the Mage Core here. This is lasting a long time. Blind. Blind, I wonder. It's a lot of affliction starting to build up. This is a pretty good trap that got trapped in a way. What are the stats on a blind Diabakumono? Oh, I'll pick the one with Battle Fright. Oh, whoops. This one. Alright, 7 attack on the Nodachi, 5 on the longbow. Still pretty good protection with the buffs, but a lot less threatening with these attack and defense values. Alright, now that it's down, let's take another scroll through. A lot of soulless in this army. Alright, the Obags, it's mannequins, they have spirit sight, they ought to be fine. Ghouls look pretty afflicted. Diabakumono, a lot of them are afflicted, but fair enough number of them are not for how long the battle was, near 18 rounds. So, oh, and the High Magus dies. How does that happen? That could be a pretty important death. Let's see. Do we get to see? No, we don't. A little bit of a replay bug. Let's go ahead and see if we can, or maybe it was that last popping noise I heard, that mage. Oh yeah, he did die. So that's the anti-magic caster. Lingering poison. Even got healed by the kitsune. Oh, wait, moss body. Were some of these moss body casts doing some stuff? Took 2 damage. 12 damage. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, potentially sitting in a soul vortex and potentially getting some poison sprayed on him. And this is a fair amount of poison, actually. Okay. That feels bad. That's a pretty important caster. Especially for Shiniyama, who doesn't always get easy anti-magic casters. Although saying that, they do have this Adept of the Silver Order, so once they have broken in, they do pretty okay. So Pythium for a change actually getting a straight up fight. Although it looks, even then it looks like an earthquake trap. Yeah, so it does have to put up with a couple of earthquakes. But given how much body ethereal Pythium does and most of their troops being armored, they should handle it reasonably well. Ooh, we have a Smasher Thug too, just in case they run across any golems. With quickness as well. Also the Army Regen caster. Alright, they do pretty well in the melee there. Okay, so that's here. They do kill the Adept of the Silver Order. They kill 3 of the Ubas, 43 dieback a mono. They do lose another Archtheurg, 2 Theurgs. They burn out the communicants, so that's 17 more communicants down. So Pythium takes a lot of damage clearing this up. I think potentially more damage than Shinu took. Although that was a lot of dieback mono. Did the Archtheurge have any gear on them? Alright, so what used to be called a crystal coin and a clam of pearls. But otherwise, probably just spent the gems. Okay, so it could have been a little worse. But, at this point, I think they're just happy to get a straight up fight, and they managed to win this one. So then, Earth Sword Desert. Kind of a small little budget raid. Trying to take out these scorpions. Now, these things, they have AP attacks, untyped AP, which means if you did have Sacreds or Temper Flesh or something like that, Sacreds with Fortitude, it wouldn't do anything. Yeah, these AP attacks are pretty rough, especially since they have good odds of putting death poison on you. It's only on damage. Although I guess that would be the Scorpion Tail attack, which is not AP. Okay. So a little bit easier. Alright. So that's Ursor. Loses 3 Emerald Guards. Does in fact win, not a replay bug. Desert of Visions. Ooh. Get a follow-up. Large number of small to large goblins show up. I don't think this group has any prayers. Alright. So that's an Acolyte down. They do kill 3 Obaks, so they get a little bit of value for these Emerald Guard. Alright, Glen of Iron. Just running into a scout. And then we've got Osanrad. This is the Yis Fort. So Agartha's going to come in and clear out Yis's new PD. Which are these Bloodhinged Druids. And these Bloodhinged Druids, because they do have a lot of blood slaves and there's a fair number of mages, they will gem bait the Agarthan army. And I'm not sure if the Agarthan army is going to have gem reloads. It looks like this guy is supposed to provide the gem reloads, though. So it should be fine. As long as he doesn't spend his earth gems. We got Firestorm and Storm. Okay, Yes gets to see this script. And yeah, most of the gems are spent, including the earth gems on this oracle. So hopefully he brought extra earth, and it looks like he did on these adepts. So should be ready to go for next turn. Alright, but did it cause attrition? Loses a Golem Crafter and a Windmaster and 2 Magma Children. The other thing I want to see is, are there Bozabatulf in this army? There are not. So if this army does indeed opt to try and storm the fort, the Demi-Lich could potentially show up unless those Bozabatulf are on scouts, and then maybe they get handed to Windmasters on the storm. But instead, we're going to get an immediate follow-up battle. Now, we do have the Gem Burn mod on, so they will be able to cast all their spells again. And in terms of this battle, it looks like we've got a bunch of Morvarks on the right flank. They're going to back up the cavalry. So the Morvark Knights, the Kurnow cavalry. A little bit, I guess, of what's called an oblique formation, so a lot of the quality troops are on the right flank. Claymen holding the center, just buying time. Some ethereal summons, trying to just buy time on the left flank, along with a few thugs. So trying to lean on those thugs. And I think we saw a hero, so Tough Skin, one of the remaining heroes. And then we got a whole bunch of mana cores back here, ready to hop back. In terms of Yis's gems, we've got this Adept with a Rune Smasher, maybe doing some Soul Slay. We've got an Adventurer doing some nature stuff. Whole bunch of Earth Gems, some Pearls, some Glamour Gems, and Nature Gems. So we're in for a treat this turn. We got a pretty big fight. Now the real question is, given the number of mana cores that may or may not be on hold and attack, although honestly a lot of them look like they're just on bodyguard, so maybe as these commanders die, then the mana cores just kind of fly in wherever. But it does seem like to me that Agartha could be vulnerable to an attack rear play. Although this looks like a lot of bodyguarded defenders here, but maybe this Oracle could be vulnerable. These Magma Kids probably not enough to fend off all this cavalry. So I think Yes is going to take this, but we'll see where it goes. This mana core is just not doing anything until the end of the battle. I guess HP sinking the army. I would think you'd want those fear auras going in, especially on a hold and attack rear. Alright, well, not gonna lie, I thought Yes would do better here than they did. The mana core is not getting in there. Seems like a misscript. At least in retrospect. Maybe they were expecting something. I'm not sure. Oh, this thug's gonna go down too. Alright, so let's see at it from the, I guess, like, the recording perspective. Most of these adepts are dead, which means they go down with the Earth Gem reloads. Oh, one of them's alive, though. The Kurnow Druids got absolutely blasted. So many of them are dead. The Thugs all died. The Sorceress did manage to retreat. Only the one Oracle ended up going down. Okay, pretty big battle, though. Let me see. Well, let me see what they cast. I wish there was like a filter for this screen. Oh. Oh, I didn't know about that. Holy moly. Alright, so this is what this guy cast. I can't believe I didn't know this. Alright, we got Phoenix Pyre, Firestorm. Although it is filtering, it just seems like the amount of log that was there, it doesn't seem to go through the whole log. Okay. And it also seems like I have to keep setting it, so it doesn't remember what I did last time. Okay. So these are the spells here. We've got Divine Blessing, Marble Army, Soldiers of Steel. A little bit curious about who put up the... Oh, must have been one of these Golden Adepts. So one of them put up Fire Fend. One did anti-magic. And then on the other end, the Agartha one put up Firestorm. Okay. Let's go ahead and watch this again, because I think this is a pretty impactful battle. So maybe Yes thought that they might only be fighting the Bloodhinge Druids, and so they didn't want to send in all their Manticores against them to potentially get petrified or something like that. So that could be one reason that they were holding back. And then also maybe the reason for the rear deploy on the Morvarks, and then relying on the Morvark Knights, who are a little bit tougher to kill all the imps and deal with the Bloodhinge Druids. And then you got the Cavemen to try and tank a lot of the foul spawn. Okay, so I think that's starting to make a little bit... They might not have been anticipating a battle this turn, but it did seem like they were kind of scripted in case they ran into one. They had a lot of gems. Alright, let's go ahead and see. So, for those of you that want to take a look at what got cast, we'll take a look at Agartha and then we'll take a look at Yes. Soldiers of Steel, just across the line generally. The Marble Army. Got the Fire Fend and Firestorm. Big Blade Winds. That seems like a lot of the script. Okay, and then on the Yes side... Oh, they're manually having to bless everyone. Alright, so we have Anti-Magic and Howl back here. But otherwise, a lot of point buffs. Some Astral Fires, though. I wonder if in some ways the Fire Fend from Yes Oh, they didn't cast it. But if some of these commanders had died, then I think potentially more of these mana cores would have jumped in. Maybe that could have turned the tide. Regen, okay. Alright, well, Agartha's our research leader, and Yis is our, at least for the four major remaining players, is our research laggard. So, not surprised to see a little bit stronger magic coming out of the Agartha side with Firestorm, as opposed to, I think it was Hal from Yes. So, but yeah, big battle. 13, all the druids go down, all the adepts go down, the adventurers go down, sucks losing healers. I didn't even see the Naiad, it died. Sorceress dies, all five Morgan champions, so this is nearly a complete mage wipe. We can take another quick look at the gear. 80 cavemen, only one mana core though, so they were on that bodyguard and they didn't get in there. So no kills either, and probably one of the more powerful elements of the army. 29 Morvarks die, and then 14 of 14 for the knights. And then on the flip side, Agartha loses an adept, an earth reader, 4 of the golem crafters, an oracle of the ancients, and 3 windmasters. Significant losses, don't get me wrong, but nothing like what Yes just took. In addition, the troop losses honestly weren't that bad. 34 magma children. Magma children die in droves. They're glass cannons. It's kind of what they do. Probably a similar role to the Morvarks on the Yes side, where they got the fiery breath for 6 AP. These magma kids have a flame strike, which does 12 AP. So, but they don't have the glamour effect. There's like hit point differences and stuff, but I think they do function similar roles as kind of like glass cannons within the army. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look really quick since these mage losses were so total at just what Yes was losing here. So it loses a Rune Smasher, a coin probably, Thistle Mace, looks like multiple Earth Boots, another coin, another Earth Boots, multiple GSSs, bracers, possibly a Shade Mail, which would be extremely useful for Agartha in terms of avoiding Demi-Lich drops, just safely getting mages from point A to point B. Maybe a Gossamer Veil, another Thistle Mace. Ring of Levitation could be useful for Earthquake traps. So a lot of potential gear could have been looted. We won't know what was unless they send us a message. All right, and then we've got Druidland. So just a little Serpent Cataphract raid. That should succeed. Yeah, loses 1. Timeless Waste. All right, let's go ahead and look at this. So a fair amount of PD here. We do have an adept doing, I guess, Soldiers of Steel, maybe gifts? Using up all your fatigue on that. We do have 2 Morgan champions. These are not heroes, but they do have a lot of experience stars. Okay. So where was that? That was here. Doesn't lose much. Kills 49 crossbows, routs the rest, and kills an adept. So that goes some way to making up for the losses in the big battle, but definitely not all the way. And then moving on to Nabah, is there a defense? There is not. All right, so yes, we'll put Nabah under siege. I suppose the other thing we can do is we can see what gear and gems this army fields. 2 GSSs, we've got some water lenses, a robe of the sea. Maybe this is quickness. I mean, maybe Yeah, probably quickness. Then what are you doing? A water elemental? Do you actually cast? I don't know that this pulled out gems, even temporary ones. Okay. And then we got the Gray Mountains, little Pythium raid, Witch Haven, Mechanical Men raid. Pretty cool. In Hergendorf, we've got a very cheap Defenders of the Hall raid, 13 gold each. Not worth getting dropped on. Can probably get cleared up by a Morvark. But, can always get augmented by something later. And, it just provides a new little threat. They might have already somewhat paid for themselves. Alright, so this golem is kitted up. And then, yeah, this is all long dead. If only Pythium had earth mages, they could maybe try to shatter these golems. So the long dead trade into some Obakemono. But otherwise, Shinu wins that one. Where was that? Yeah, loses 25 Obaks to 120 long dead, but otherwise wins. And then Machaca sallying in Machaca. So let's go ahead and see what they sally with. Pythium's got a budget force here. They do have a couple of pearls on this one. Machaca's bringing probably Hal, maybe Relief, or maybe just some Swarm casts. Otherwise, it's mostly a troop affair. We have a small number of Emerald Guard, fair number of Ogres, Terracotta Soldiers, Shade Beasts. Shade Beasts could be particularly nasty here. And then, yeah, these Machacan Sorcerers just have so many paths on them. We got the Black Sorcerer. So, decent Earth Mage. Fire 2. Anyways, we'll go ahead and play this. Expect Machaca to win this. Oh, those are big falling fires. Alright. So Machaca does indeed win. They lose 26 of the Shade Beasts. The Shade Beasts did worse than I thought they were, but the Killer Mantis did pretty well. Loses 11 of them, though. And Machaca is free again. So, which is definitely going to complicate Pythium's position here. And then in Austrias, so we got Pythium attacking Shinu. We do have a thug back here. Well, not a thug, but maybe a mage who's going to get some point buffs. And then essentially thug this stuff without gear. Probably with some flame eruptions. Or instead, I think that might have been too much HP on the PD, even though it counts for less because it is PD. It was a fair amount of PD and it might have HP routed that sorcerer. So loses 2 Pikeneers, kills 4 Kappa, clears out a fair amount of Horse Tribe PD. Then in Kuna Ural, the Flame Spirit takes out a few Machaka Hoplites. Ooh, and then we potentially have an interesting little skirmish here. So the dragon shows up. Only the one temporary water gem at the moment, but does have a Bakemono Sorcerer Thug in attendance. 4 fire gems, maybe some living fires? After doing Phoenix Power. Oh, that's a lot of Draconians, though. And, okay, and this gnome is not a commander. They do have a really funny slap attack, which causes shrink. So we'll see if one of these guys gets smaller. Oh, flaming arrows. That's what he's doing. All right. Draconians are fended off. All right, so Shinyama wins that one. Cospithium Hydra, 200 gold, a couple of Hydra hatchlings, 12 Emerald Guard, 21 Draconians, 2 Archers, and all it costs Shinu is 13 dieback mono. So roughly in line with the Emerald Guard numbers, they did lose a little bit more in a straight-up comparison. But Pythium also loses their PD here, which I think puts it over the top in terms of the gold comparison. And there's like some gem considerations, losing a bunch of Draconians. All right. So what we got here? Not a lot of action underground that I'm seeing. Let's go ahead and head to the surface. All right. So here's where the big fight took place. Gartha moves on to Osanrad. It is not cracked, but he can't get Demi-Lich dropped here, and he's killed most of the army inside. I mean, this is pretty comprehensive. A lot of the stuff inside is going to be mana cores, though, which are not easy to deal with. So potentially the Demi-Lich can drop inside and have a pretty good chaff screen. And then, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if he starts doing these kind of budget raids, trying to raid it out in terms of like, 10 to 15 defenders, or maybe a mage and a few shard guard, stuff like that. Stuff that isn't worth dropping a Demi-Lich on, especially because there's no labs there. On the other side of yes, new little forces continually heading out. I think he's starting to learn that the armies need to be a little bit more expendable generally when moving in the open. So this looks a lot smaller compared to some of the armies he's showed up with in the past. But I wonder, even still, if this is actually 40 troops, maybe it could have been 20 troops in both of these provinces. And sure, you might lose some of these raiding groups, but I think he would still deal attrition. He's got a pretty good bless. Yes is sitting on Naba. So I imagine there's actually good odds the Dimulich maybe drops on this force to prevent reinforcements from showing up. We'll have to wait and see, though. Might also decide to keep it closer to home. Maybe stick it in Osanrad. But yeah, they do get the lab built. When it comes to... Yeah, I think that's it for this. Right now, I think I still give Agartha the edge, for sure. But, I mean, Yes is getting a tremendous amount of incomes and gem income from this coastline here. So we'll have to see if Agartha can make inroads to try and taper off some of that income. Because Agartha's bled a lot for this Jotunheim region. I don't think you want to be losing it to Yes quite so soon. Ooh, an assassination. Alright, so we have Bane Spider going after a Theurgic Acolyte. There is a Hunter Spider in town. Just Gift of Cheated Fate repeatedly. What was that? What was he casting it on? Alright. Well, the spider wins. Let's see. Just to confirm. Yep. Alright. So Machaca is free. Most of their land is raided. Their income's still going to be bad, but there's not a lot of Pythium stuff in the area. Almost so much of it has been Wind of Death away that there's just not much left in the tank. So Pythium is still managing to lock down Kuna Ural, but Machaca's got Cliff Coast, Machaca's got Machaca now. And at least Pythium's still drawing income, but that could potentially be under threat. If Machaca takes, was it these three provinces? They could try to cut off the income from these, but we'll see if they bother with that. On the flip side now, Desert of Visions, that falls to Shinyama, so they get all this gem income. So was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? In MA, which is pretty decent for a province. They re-secure the entrance to their cave. And they're once again forking these two forts, threatening both. We do see Great Eagles coming out for Pythium. And then, yeah, Shinyama trying to keep control here. They did try to run into Dovin to secure this very strategic location. They didn't quite succeed. They did score a lot of kills, though. But yeah, Pythium does retain control over this, allowing them to raid two parts of Shinyama's cap circle and prevent attacks from going around the right-hand side of this lake to get at Pythium itself. And then they've got their two forts kind of securing the left-hand side. So which means that it gets a lot harder. Pythium can raid all this like they did this turn. Pretty easily from Feral Woods. They get good mage recruitment here. They can get gnomes. They can get all their Theurgs. So it's pretty difficult. So Shinyama is very vulnerable in this area. They have to defend a lot. It's very hard for them to attack, so it's very much a strategic disadvantage. So you couldn't blame them for sending their main army south towards Terranea, where it's a little bit easier for Shinyama. This fort here in Terranea doesn't project any control around this lake, whereas Phrygia at least attempts to a little bit. You know, you can interrupt anyone running through Sotera by raiding there from this throne fort. And now Shinyama's got their big army here on Tyranea. And it's cracked. So we'll see if Pythium can do anything to try and rescue their globals here. They should have a pretty big army inside, though. But they did lose a fair amount of stuff outside to a crone drop. But yeah, in terms of the Pyrene region, not a lot of forts along the frontier, so kind of similar where it's Shinyama's got the protection. You know, they've got this river here. There is a bridge here. So it's a little bit harder. Shinyama exerts the control here in Shade Forest. And they can also raid forward and try to project power. It's not quite as strong of a line as what Pythium's got over here. But it is a lot stronger than what Pythium's got down. Like, this line is a lot stronger than what Pythium's trying to do with Pyrene's capital. So it is tricky. All right, and then I think that's our two sort of like 1v1s at the moment. Although Machaca is coming alive again. And I think Agartha's position improves every turn Machaca stays alive. So this is getting pretty dangerous here for Pythium. Let's go ahead and take a look at graphs. We're at 52 minutes, so I should try to wrap this up. For provinces, you can see the kind of like upticks, downticks. It's still a group of four, and they're all viable. Yes is up this turn. Forts, Agartha pulls ahead. Income, Pythium pulling down towards Shinu and Agartha, but still has a significant lead over Yes. Gem income, Pythium pulling further ahead right now. Should probably take a look at globals. Globals might play some piece in that. Agartha's still leading on research. And then we've got army size, where everyone's down this turn from fighting. So they all kind of took a few turns to build up a little bit. And now they've all shot their shot and they're all down a bit in terms of army size. But I would say Agartha probably got the best of all of this because they got a decisive engagement from Yes and they won it handily. And then probably the second place on this is maybe Shinyama for being able to pin Pythium's army inside that fort, which also means that they can't get magic faced on, but they do have to suffer as long as they stay there, whatever Pythium might send out to like gem burn them or something. The other key piece that Shinyama could do is there's now not a lot left in Pythium's cap, or in Pyrene. Sorry, it's not Pythium's capital, it's Pyrene. So if they wanted, they could potentially think about rotating off of this fort and maybe threatening Pyrene, getting in here. But I do think there's a lot of incentives for trying to kill off Stellar Focus and Eternal Pyre. So we'll see if they end up going for that instead. And then Agartha is still with Eyes of God. So they've got the best, I guess, like strategic view versus everyone else. They can always corroborate things with scouts, but at least they get to see the flags with that global so that they know Machaca is free again. And they're not going to have to worry about getting attacked by Pythium until that's over for sure. Even if they think Pythium is handily beating Shinyama, which they are not anymore. So yeah, I think that's it for this one. I'll go ahead and wrap it up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.